Welcome to the Kawartha Small Business Podcast, where we believe the Kawarthas can be the most thriving region in Canada for small business. I'm Brian Rump from Profit Coach,
And I'm Matt Garrity from Managing Digital.
and we are recording today from the Thrive Podcast Studio at Thrive Co-working Community at 18 Kent Street West in downtown Lindsay. And we have with us Anand from Twisted Indian, otherwise known as the tall guy who knows your name from Twisted Indian.
That's right. I'm the
Welcome.
tall, crazy guy who's very chatty. It's great to be here, guys, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. So yeah, tell us about. You are a great example of we want to be the most thriving region in Canada for small business, and you are one of the crazy people who started a small business here. So tell us about
Crazy, yeah, crazy. It is true.
that.
I think we started thinking, and this goes back to, I want to say 2014 when I first visited Lindsay, and I obviously didn't live here then. I visited Lindsay and I was like, okay, what can we do for good Indian food or anything close to that? And there was nothing. So I used to live in a different province. So I used to just visit my sister who was at that time living here since I think 2012. And then I sort of stayed for a week and then, we didn't have any options. So I go back to Saskatchewan where I used to be. And I get that a lot. Like, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Just because Ontario is always superior than anything else.
Oh yes, center of the universe.
That's right. That's right. So then I come back in I think it was 2016 or 17, and then same thing, right? So it's like nothing happening in terms of diversity in food, right?
Yeah.
So we say, okay, let's go to Peterborough or Ajax or anywhere else, and fast forward in 2019, I decided to move to Ontario from Saskatchewan. You wonder why? And I said, okay, well, and that time I obviously stayed in Lindsay. And it's amazing how it worked out because it was just the onset of COVID, right? And we were thinking to open up a restaurant in just as soon as I, sort of moved into Lindsay, Ontario, right? But we didn't because of COVID, because it was scary times. Because everything is shutting down. Life is a mystery at this point. What are you gonna do, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of continued doing my job, which I transferred into Ontario, and we decided to sort of postpone the plans of opening something anywhere, right? Because of the uncertainty of COVID, right? 2021, we decided, okay, maybe now it's a good time, and hopefully, the worst is in the past, sort of thing, right? So we decided to sort of start our research, and we did a preliminary research of 5 people in Lindsay. We asked them, hey, Indian food, right? What do you think? And they said, oh, yeah, I think it'll do well. So we decided to say, okay, well, let's just take a leap of faith and open up Twisted Indian in Lindsay. So we opened up our doors in 2021 December, and it's been a year and a couple of months now. So that's the story.
It feels like it took off. I obviously don't work there, but it feels like it came in, people were talking about it a lot, really excited. I had a couple people recommend it. Patricia Boyd, she actually was one of the people that told me to go. My barber told me to go. I finally got there, and why do you think it took off?
I think it's part giving a thirsty person a jug of water, sort of thing, and also also the interest of the population to have some sort of different type of food, right? It's a combination of both. I think people always wanted something different. I think it was just and even prior to our business, I think there was a few mom and pop shops or like a few small stores that were trying to introduce certain different types of food, but I think it didn't really get a lot of traction because they were trying to keep it sort of mixed, right, rather than just choosing a trend or choosing a particular cuisine, right? So people did get recognition for a lot of customers of ours come and say, oh, before you there was this place where I used to go and get this, but that place is no more here. So that makes me realize that even the operators back in the days maybe were not too sure if that's what people wanted, right? And again, call it a leap of faith. We just sort of said, let's just do this, and we'll wonder later how it's going to be. And that's a risky move, obviously, right? But you're right, Matt. It's kind of worked out in our favor in terms of how it took off, and again, it didn't take off because, we are, of course we work hard and everything, but the community helps as well. The population has been very kind, and people, the word of mouth, like I was telling somebody a couple of weeks ago, has been huge for us, right? So, and because it's such a close knit community, people know each other, and that's what kind of trickled down to our success as well so far. Again, because people were sharing and talking about us behind the scenes, and that kind of positive, chat was helping our growth, as well. And again, I'm not saying that we've reached our potential, the maximum we can, but that has been a very good, contributing factor to our first year of being still in business.
It was so timely. Like, the demographics up here have changed so much since COVID. People coming from the cities. I'm going on 5 years of being in Lindsay, and I grew up in Whitby, Durham region.
Right.
I still think I've worked the majority of my career in Ajax and Pickering.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm used to, I used to go to Barrel's Pepper Pot, a Caribbean restaurant, every single week.
Right.
For 5 to 7 years, sometimes more. Anytime I didn't have lunch, I would just go there.
Right.
And one of my biggest concerns moving up here was there's not that selection of exotic food, right?
Right.
There was a Caribbean place, and it was burritos.
Right.
So I was not super thrilled that I was going to be losing my jerk chicken every week, but I think what you've seen the last couple of years, at least being timely with people are changing, and the demographics are coming from the cities, and you came at the right time.
See, I think I've been told that many times too, that the timing is perfect. But I mean, when we opened up, when we were planning in I think March, April of 2021, we didn't really exactly know how things are going to be, if COVID is coming to an end or not, and it was a lot of unthinkable, a lot of undecisive stuff that was going around. But yeah, you're right. Demographic. Since I told you, I've been around Lindsay since 2015 from my first visit, I have seen it changing slowly but surely, right? And I think a lot more diversity is coming, which is, only saying that there will be a lot more demand or need for something different. But also not to forget that the population that has been here for a long time also got a chance to explore something new, which is huge because, I think, and I'm not sure if people in Lindsay, people who have been here for years and years have explored the Durhams and the Mississaugas, and there's the plethora of options there. I'm not sure if they've gone out and tried those, but when they have received something that's different than the existing options, they've appreciated it a lot more. And I think that has been also the reason why we have raving reviews on Google, or we have a huge sort of following in terms of word of mouth, right? So that has been again a very good thing. But yeah, diversity for sure has been huge as well.
I think you have rave reviews not to take it here right away, and the reason why you're going to be successful long term, there's two reasons. The word of mouth is one thing, and you guys took off, and you're busy, and everyone's talking about it, and that can trickle away. You're going to be successful long term because your food's actually good, and two is you. And I, not to bring this into the podcast, but I've talked to you about this privately before,
right,
when we were out at that thing a couple months ago.
Yes.
It's you, man. You're the person that remembers everybody's name, friendly to everybody. You're really chatty. All these things that you're kind of joking about, as negatives, those are positives. That's what people want.
I bet you if you ask my staff, they wouldn't say that. They would be like, this guy keeps wasting time talking to people and just doing all the work.
I think what's really good, though, in that chatty and why it's good is the people who are nervous, and I've watched people come in who hadn't really been there, but they've heard, that place is good. And the first time I didn't know you existed, and it was at the CrossFit gym we go to on the other side of the plaza. People who do not like generally different food, who I was surprised they went, and they were talked about how you gave them some samples and explained things, and then they loved it. But they were nervous. So if you walk into a place where you're nervous and you're kind of guessing what to order, maybe you picked the wrong thing that day. But if you have someone like you who's friendly, who opens it up, now it's I want to come back and try that other thing.
Yes.
And then, as they were opening up the one I wanted, I saw something else that I need to try next time. So starts getting people curious and all, trying things over.
No, I completely agree. But I think, the main important thing is that, obviously I cannot take the credit for all the customers that we've handled so far. And obviously staff has been trained. My goal is to have, again, this is like a wish more than a goal, is to have, the customers getting the same level of service, the same level of, positivity from all of our staff members, that they would expect or that they would receive from me. And I think, when we train our staff, we want to emphasis on what kind of impression we want to give our customers. And, people normally categorize us as fast food, but Indian. And I say, no, it's not fast food, because it takes us 90 minutes to make a curry behind the scenes. And sure, we are serving it in 30 seconds on a rice bowl. But, we do put in effort to make things, somewhat authentic, again, which means that we're not jacking up the spice, but we are also keeping it inclusive for everybody. So, I mean, a Lindsay palate, again, I'm not to stereotype, but somebody in Lindsay who's never had anything Indian, I would want them to come and have a positive experience.
Yeah.
And, like you said, Brian, that, we don't want them to be scared. And that's why what I say, hold hands, while we sort of take them to the journey of, what would work for you. So if somebody says, and I've received this question numerous times, like, what is not spicy? And I say, nothing is spicy unless you want it to.
Yeah.
And then when somebody says, yeah, hit me, we make it good spicy so that you can also get that experience that you're looking for under the same roof, right? So no, I mean, it's the menu is very approachable, very, very approachable in terms of what you would, want to get and what you want to enjoy. It's very versatile too, right? So if you want to have burgers and fries, we have that for you. Of course, it's not a boring burger. It has a little bit of spice and flavor to it. So you are in for a surprise. But you also have poutine. I mean, Canadian classic poutine, right? Combined with Indian food. Who would not want to have that, right? So then tacos, and then we have rice bowls and salad bowls for the health conscious people. We have, fries with a twist, So the name Twisted Indian is basically like exactly what it is. Yeah. It's Indian food with a twist. And the twist is how we present it, but also how we can customize it for you, which is in relation to a traditional Indian restaurant. You would have, your butter chicken and your jeera rice and your naan bread, which you order, and you would get it just in one form. Yes, you can say I can have it, spicy or mild, but here you have a range of choices, which are your choices, which would make the food completely personalizable for yourself, right?
Yeah, I guess now I've never realized it till I'm sitting here looking at your hat where it's Twisted Indian Wraps, and the wraps is what makes it more accessible.
I keep forgetting about the wraps.
I've never had a wrap, and we were talking a couple months ago, but I think you said, correct me, the wraps are still what you sell the most of.
It's definitely one of the high selling things. And I mean, if I see my product mix, I think people generally prefer the rice bowls. And the fact that, why is that? Because it's enough food to have it for sort of one seating and a little bit over, right? So, people...
I'm eating too much then.
Which is not a bad thing, right? I think a lot of people prefer the bowl. They're not as, not to say messy, but they're definitely more, easier to eat, and you can take time with it. Wraps obviously get a little bit soggy or whatever, but you have to have a mission to finish a wrap then, right? As opposed to you can have your rice bowl.
Yeah, they travel so well. And if take it home.
Yeah. And if you're like anybody like me, if I sit down with one item of food, I don't finish it. I play with my food too much, and I know your mommy told you not to play with the food, but I'm one of those people. I don't eat it in one go. Rather, I would have small bites or small portions. So rice bowl can last me all day, or a wrap I can sort of finish in a couple hours. But the wraps, they do sell well, and we have two types, right? So there is a baroti wrap, baroti, a twist on the word burrito. So again, baroti is like a pun, like a mix Indian spin on burrito, right?
Yeah.
Which is a whole wheat tortilla wrap, right? And we have a naan wrap. So a lot of people appreciate the naan wrap because they say that the naan wrap is, very Indian, right? Because of course anything with naan is very Indian, right? So I mean, wraps do sell well, but we have other things as well which sell quite the same, right? It's just what you prefer, right?
Yeah. When I first started going, I was getting, I guess they were just called entrees, where it was all in a tray and there's a little bit of salad and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But I love with Indian food or Chinese food and different types of food, I like mixing it all together.
Yes.
It's like my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So when I realized afterwards I could get all this in a bowl, because I was doing it anyways, I was just mixing up. Like, why do I not get a bowl?
Yes.
It's just the glorious mouthfuls of these different flavors all the time.
Yeah. So we have a format in our menu called the meal. And the meal is basically what you're talking to. And that basically has rice, a choice of vegetarian, which we kind of just put on rice, and then the meat and the small salad and the naan bread is on side. Now, that is a take on our traditional format called thali, which is the Indian thali. So thalis are very popular back home. You get a lot more, of course, of variety in terms of texture and flavors when you go to a traditional Indian restaurant or even in a restaurant back home. But 100%, I think in our format, I even prefer or recommend customers to have the bowl, because it has a lot more fresh ingredients. And when you basically mix everything together, the medley and the flavors infused together brings out a lot more.
I remember the first time we had it here, you cried because you got the hot stuff a bit more, and you kind of like mixed it all up and kind of went right at it. And I think
but see, this is the great thing. What I like about our menu is that, so rice bowl or a Super Bowl we call it, and it's nothing to do with the football game. Super Bowl has like rice, and then you have a couple options of veg and one meat, right? And you still get to choose all the toppings and your choice of like your chutneys, which is like a ground up salsa, right? Mm-hmm. You can choose those in number of combination and have a different experience each time you order a Super Bowl, depending on what you choose. It's the same format, but because of your choices, it becomes like a completely different meal, or sort of a different meal. And that's the beauty of it. Like, you can have a beef curry, but let's say you replace that with a butter chicken, and you will have sort of a different experience in the same format, right? So that's when I think the catch is, where we try to bring you back for the same things, but not the same things, right?
Yeah. I should have known you remember that, because you remember everything. But I think it was like the first or second time I'd had it. I had it at least one more time before. Right. I think I went medium with an entree, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I think I got something that was hot, and the first bite I took, I just put it in my mouth and just punched me in the back of the throat.
Yeah.
But then I got it all mixed up, and I got back to normal. But
we put out disclaimer saying, if you're definitely getting anything hot, make sure you mix things, because if you just get a spoonful of hot things on its own, you will definitely feel it. Again, not to scare anybody, but it's just the flavors, combination of flavors that come together, right? And that is it, right?
But it's good quality heat. It's not like you're getting chicken wings that are suicide or whatever you want to say, where you can't taste anything. It was like different flavors with the peppers. It was lovely. It just was surprising. Like, okay, maybe I overdid it.
And I think you've done an amazing job of having the different tiers and different profiles for different things. And it's just the experience of learning what combinations you
That's
make.
right.
Because I know I joke with your staff. I think every time I go, you have only been there like a couple of the times, and it's always the staff, and I make them do like my own ratios of the different chutneys, because in my head I'm like thinking about what I'm pairing it with and how it's going to mix and how hot I want it that day.
Right.
So it's great to be sort of predictable and be able to make that blend versus being super surprised by it.
Yeah.
You have to mix it good.
Yeah,
so get a chunk of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, and I think for our first-time customers, that's the reason why we sort of explain them and, sort of take a couple extra minutes to decide that this is not going to be off-putting for them, right?
Yeah.
And even go one step further and say, would you like to sample this, before you sort of decide or before you sort of just get it on your food, right?
Yeah.
Because then we don't want them to be off-putting or regret that decision in terms of spice level or whatever. Because, of course, it's going to be, we don't want to scar people, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or like not make, let them to make a wrong decision that something that may not be, in their comfort zone, right? But we also want people to try new things, of course,
Yeah.
and come out of their comfort zone, right? Crispy chicken sandwich. I mean, it's crispy chicken sandwich. Everybody does crispy chicken sandwich, but when you get it from our place, it's a little bit different. And the difference is those flavorful chutneys that are, by the way, made in house, fresh from real ingredients, right? So it's not open up a bag and pour into the container, right? It's I sometimes joke with my customers saying, we don't get things in a bag, we get things in a blender,
Yeah.
and it's my way to say that, we do want to put your health and the freshness of the food in your mind when you choose things, right? So
It's good to know too, because you are a franchise, right?
we are, yes.
And I think sometimes people think that a franchise means you're not getting real homemade type of food.
Yes, and I mean, you kind of hit the nail in the right spot when you said that, Matt, because a lot of times franchisees are perceived to be these huge corporations that are basically in the business to make money, and of course everybody likes to make money. But how this brand started, and that's the reason why I was able to relate with them, is that there's a lot of focus on fresh, healthy, and genuine customer service satisfaction. These were the criteria that I saw when I met the founders, and that's what something resonated. That these are the things that I was sort of attracted to, I guess. And I told my family back in the days when we were deciding whether to open up this or follow something else,
Yeah.
is that I said they've done all the groundwork and they've done a immensely great job in putting the brand together very well in terms of customer service satisfaction models. They're focused on healthy yet enjoyable food and fast, right? So I know, again, and this just going back to your comment about franchisee, it started as a family owned, and it still is. So the franchisor who started this brand has 2 stores, and they are still involved with it in operation, right? So, and also the fact that they started kind of in 2018 time, which was just kind of around COVID time too. They have about 14 locations that are active right now, including one of myself, of course, right? But they're also growing. There's upcoming stores that are in the pipeline for the 2023 and 2024. So it's definitely a brand that is growing slowly. What I do like is every store is operated or has ownership involvement, which is where the difference is. I mean, I know
Sure.
people who own 5 subways or 7 subways, and they are staff run. Nothing to say that, not to say that the staff don't have good intentions, but when the owner is not around, it can easily get away, and it can easily be the charm can be lost, right?
Yeah.
So and back to our private conversation, that's my concern as well. Like, if I step away, would my business perform the same way as if I'm there? And I think the wish is to find like-minded people who has similar goals and similar expectations slash standards of service delivery, right? So we try to train the right people so that we achieve those expectations or those standards that we have laid and that we want to see. Because it's again, I applaud your your positive comments that we've taken off very well. It's not easy. It's not hard to get up top. It's it's hard to stay there, right? So I think my wish is that sure, we've done enough positive traction, but obviously there's a lot more to be had in terms of we haven't reached our full potential, and that's only going to come if we stay consistent and we maintain this the friendliness that you see in our customer service every time somebody familiar or not familiar person walks into our doors, right?
That's awesome.
I think it's cool. One of the things I wanted to point out when I first went there, and being a franchise, I used to, or first I thought, you bring in everything's sort of sauce based,
Right.
travels well in a bucket. So you're just bringing it from a, food processor, which again, places do that. But when you had your anniversary and wrap day, you were saying
Yes.
how hard it was because you make everything in small batches.
Yes.
And then earlier today, you're like, it takes 90 minutes to make a batch. So I just think that's something maybe we want to make sure people understand is that it is made in-house in
Yes.
batches versus, the buckets of stuff come on a truck and you
Yes.
heat it up.
It's definitely the harder way to do it, but it's like one of those happy pains, right?
Yeah.
You enjoy doing it the hard way because it's done right. No, like we make a lot of things. There's a lot of component cooking, which means we sauteed our onions, right, and then of course we mix our spices with our onions as we need it, so we are able to keep our food that we serve fresh in small batches, right?
Yeah.
There is definitely not a lot of prepackaged buckets or bags. We make our pickled onions, for example. So we slice our onions. We, even for fast food now, I should have mentioned I've had my decent time in my life. Half of my life in working life has been in customer service industry, and a good chunk of that has been with food, right? And other overlaps into hospitality and management and business, right? Which explains why I'm so sort of chatty, or why I like to take interest. And I almost at a point where I'm very nosy, right, with people. So I love working with food, and it's a self-realization I've received. It's a self-reflection rather that I've realized about my own self. And I work with food and people. Those are the two things that I love doing. And that's why when I opened this, I was, I definitely putting long hours, but I'm enjoying it, right? Because how they say, it's a cliche again, that if you love doing something, you never work a day in your life, right? It's definitely a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of hard work, and we definitely do a lot of things fresh. But it's what we take pride in, right? When customers like yourselves come back and enjoy and tell their friends and family, that's our positive that we get out of it, right? And in terms of serving food, we always rotate things, so nothing is made 7 days before we serve it, kind of thing. Everything kind of depletes in a couple of days, which means we're always sort of cyclical, right? It's very cyclical. We're doing, okay, let's make this again, let's make this again. That's every day, every other day we're going through that journey. But again, that's something we take pride in, to serve fresh and serve it fast, right?
What's the magic amount of time for like some of the curries? Because I know sometimes it's like, oh, you want it made fresh, but then also they get better when they've been stewing for a bit. So it's like sometimes I know for me, I'm like, I actually don't want it that fresh. Like I want the one that's like been able to set up and the flavors gel.
So yeah, we call it in Indian cuisine, we call it marinated foods, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah, no, we don't. So when we make our chicken tikka, for example, which is like our not so saucy chicken, we marinate that chicken for 24 hours at least before we serve it. So the time has been given to incubate the flavors into the meat, for example, or even with our vegetable stews, right? The process is generally 20 to 40 minutes, or in the case of beef curry, for example, 90 minutes of cooking. And then we don't serve that beef curry right away. It goes back into the fridge and it marinates itself. Now that beef curry that has been made today, for example, is going to be served within the next few days, which is still keeping in mind the food safety of it. So it marinates in the fridge, and then exactly, it gets better. And you're right, it gets better. So we like to serve food in almost like a rotation, where we are allowing the food to absorb its flavor, and then as we sort of use up, we make a new batch, which again stays in the fridge for a bit, and then we sort of reschauffe it, right? And that's what brings the taste even better. Now, you can only allow a curry to be in a fridge for so long, and that's why we make in small batches, because you don't want to have a curry that has been made in January to serve in Feb. I mean, that would be a bad thing to do for sure. So,
Yeah, it's so fascinating to hear. Whatever you do with the kidney bean one is like magic. It's really good.
Yeah, so I mean, see, a lot of this is like the education piece of the food in Lindsay, in terms of our business, is huge too, right? But nobody knows what rajma is called. So when we are serving our guests, we call them not customers. We always say both things together. So rajma is red kidney beans. Chana is chickpeas, and it's amazing to see when customers start to remember
Yeah.
the original name or the proper name, and they always mixing things up. And it's again, we don't make fun of them. Obviously, we
Yeah.
we understand that it's alien to them, right? It's a foreign name, and
Mhm.
it takes time to know things. So, but a lot of people try to say the rajma, right? And
I didn't know Rajma, but I know like Chana.
yeah, exactly, right. So
Paneer.
yeah, so rajma, chana, these are very popular food from the North Indian cuisine of India, and Canadian for Canadian perception. A lot of restaurants that you normally go to when you say Indian food is, I want to say generously, 85% is North Indian food, which again is sometimes a misinformation, right? A lot
Sure.
of people think Indian food is butter chicken, chicken tikka, butter naan, garlic naan, and rice. Not really. There's a lot more than that. There is a lot more diversity in Indian food too. But yes, it won't be inaccurate to say that 85% of the restaurants that you might go to when you say Indian food is North Indian style food.
Yeah, in my teaching at Fleming in my classes, sometimes as an icebreaker when I have a group from all over, we'll have a spur of the moment debate over which region in India has the best food, and
Yes.
people get pretty passionate over.
Yes, India is
Over
India is a
it's
huge,
very-
huge country, very vast, very varied. From the north to south, you will have completely different experience, right? And so is the food, and so is the language, and everything is
Yeah.
changing. But of course, your early onsetters in Canada were from like Punjab or like the north of India, and that's why the influence is so heavy.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, of course, you go to your Mississaugas and your other areas which has a bit more diversity. You will see a lot of options. So there are definitely different Indian foods that you can explore. But it's again, you have to travel to those thick areas where you would have a heavy Indian population to have the variety of Indian cuisine. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, I kind of run out of questions.
Sure, I
so-
could keep
I could
talking
talk
to him
all
all
day.
day. That's the problem. Like
Yes.
not to give my final thoughts, but I know Brian will always ask for that. Like, Anand's just one of the nice guys, locally or anywhere that you're going to meet, and it's good food, nice guy. And like, I love chatting with you. I chatted with you at the 100 Men a couple months ago. Like, it was just great to sit there for an hour and a bit and just talk to you. And
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I'm definitely overly, infamously known as overly chatty guy, and I definitely talk quite a bit. I enjoy communicating with people. I love talking to people, but I think deep down I also know that I love knowing who you are as a person, and how, like interested to know in how your life journey has been. And it's part of it has been because of my experiences as well. Like I've never, like when I arrived to Canada in 2010, I came as a student, right? And I've lived in Saskatchewan for 8 years. A very, very different experience, but very versatile experience as well. I'm 36, but I've lived probably 17 years of my life outside India. I was in England for 2 3 years, and then I came over to Canada, and I've had so many opportunities to explore and meet new people, and I think that became my character. So part of the reason why I wanted to join the 100 Men is also this curious person in me saying, let's see who's who of the town, and not even that, but let's explore and see how many people I can meet, and sort of get to know, and that's what I love doing. And I think it's a very talking about the 100 men. It's a very great platform to be helpful in your small way, but not in a small way, because it
Yeah.
impacts such a in such a big way for the people in need and the organization in need,
Mhm.
right? Um, it's been great being a part of the 100 men as well, knowing people like yourselves again. Uh, I think I joined in early, basically when I started, working operating in Twisted Indian, right? So dates back December 2021. I've been a member for a year now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like I can't realize that. I mean, but
Yeah.
I've been on to the 4 meetings four meetings already, and each time I felt like I feel this inside. You feel this happiness that somebody is being supported or helped out in
Yeah.
such a big way. And I've met great people. I again, because I love remembering people and try to sort of keep so many people in my head. I love going back to them and sort of keeping up to them and say, hey, what are you doing now? And I feel great when people are growing, and a lot of people are moving in positive direction. Of course, I get a little bit of exposure in that flow of growth as well, right? So, and that's what I wish for Lindsay. Lindsay has been great. I cannot thank and wish great things about the community, because it has received us in open arms and being so positive, and of course helped us with the word of mouth. And it's a great community to be in. We wish, again, like, we know more people and we serve more people, and of course we, in the years coming in the future, we thrive as a successful business, and we are able to deliver the same level of service and the same level of satisfaction that we are doing now. So yeah, I mean, it's been a great journey, and looking forward to more of it in the future for sure.
Awesome. Where can the people find you?
Oh, so we are located in the Whitney Town Center, which is 370 Kent Street West. It's basically the same plaza where the Wild Wing is. We are in the same strip as Little Caesar and the Teriyaki Town, which is another great ethnic food place in town. So, it's right close to the Kent Street, density of businesses, commercial areas. So, yeah, Whitney Town Center, right across the Wild Wing.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a fun conversation. If you're listening and would like to be on the show as well, you can send us an email and we can set that up at setitup@kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca.